Hey guys, quickly before we start the video, if you like amazing games like Elden Ring, Resident Evil 4, or Silent Hill 2, then you're in luck, because Alien has teamed up with gaming YouTuber IndieMouse to bring you 3 amazing new teas based on these games. They'll only be available till the end of August, so go to alienclothing.com and use code MOUSE for 15% off your order. That's AYYLIEN clothing.com and use code MOUSE, M-A-U-S. Thanks for listening, now enjoy the video. Today we're talking about HBO's The Idol. The only thing good about this show is that it's 5 episodes long. I would also like to mention how awful of a decision it was to change HBO Max to Max. That's like removing the brand from the brand. It makes no sense. That's like if Dunkin' Donuts, instead of naming itself Dunkin', named itself Donuts. It's like if A24 changed their name to A. Why did they do that? It makes no sense. Anyway, it was created by The Weeknd, Reza Fahim, and Sam Levinson. I think it's so funny how The Weeknd is still trying to convince people out there that this show is better than it is. Going so far as to make pot shots at Rolling Stone.
Rolling Stone? Are they a little irrelevant?
Sam Levinson, for those that don't know, is the creator and director of Euphoria, a show that I quite liked. So I went into this new show thinking, hey, it's gotta be at least kinda good, right? It should have that gritty underground feel to it, a very human show with human elements, tackling the horrors of fame.
It's just that title.
But yeah, it seems like this show suffers from season 8 Game of Thrones syndrome.
No.
Trying to subvert your expectations with the last episode. Uh-oh, you got bamboozled, audience. You didn't see that coming. And by doing this, you kind of ruined your entire show. I will explain in more detail as we go. This show stars Lily Rose Depp, Johnny Depp's daughter, and The Weeknd. It's a hypersexual abomination disguised as a high art commentary on the parasitic and disgusting inner circle of an A-list pop star. I apologize ahead of time for how censored this video will need to be. I know it sucks, but I have to do this in order to pass all of YouTube's dumb monetization checks. This show revolves around a pop star named Jocelyn, who's in a creative rut after the passing of her mother, and she needs to create a hit song and album before her tour can be approved, but she lost her spark. The first episode starts with people debating whether or not Jocelyn can take a nude photo shoot. Jocelyn doesn't like her assigned intimacy coordinator because she desperately wants to show her this intimacy coordinator is in place to protect Jocelyn. If Jocelyn doesn't need protecting, who gives a shit? I guess nude photos have to be approved by someone or something. But why not just take both and then if they don't get approved, don't use them? Instead, they decide to lock this poor guy in a bathroom until the photo shoot is finished. I gotta say the writing in this show is what really dragged it down for me.
It's risky for a reason.
No, but if it's the right risk, then you basically know how it's gonna play out.
No, that's the exact opposite of a risk. That's playing it safe. That's what everyone else does. Is that what you do?
They're filming a music video in this episode as the people in control of Joss's life comment on various bullshit. Later, Jocelyn goes to a nightclub. This club is owned by a guy named Tedros, and he's played by The Weeknd. He calls her out in front of everybody, they dance together and form a bond. And so the nightmare begins. There's an interview scene between this woman that works at Vanity Fair and Jocelyn. I quite like this scene. Jocelyn's experience in the industry up to this point has prepared her for interviews such as this. It is interesting to watch Jocelyn's internal turmoil and how it impacts her and her creative trajectory. Her label created this soulless pop song for her, and they're forcing her to make a music video for the song. And she doesn't like the song. She wants to work on music that will mean something to her. She wants to be taken seriously in the industry. She wants the song to be dirtier and more mature. But she only wants this after meeting Tedros. So Jocelyn puts her own spin on this song. She plays it for her team the next day, and she's instantly shut down. This woman named Nikki, one of the people working for her label, tell her that this new song is not commercial enough. So are we just supposed to ignore the actual music industry? Because in the actual industry, being provocative and over the top with appeal sells like crazy. And so many female artists out there try to outdo one another for this reason. What reality does this show exist in? I mean, unless Jocelyn was only making kids albums before this, then maybe it wouldn't make sense. But they never really established that. And if this were the case, then why would the label want her to make a song called I'm a Freak in the first place? They wouldn't. obviously. So it just doesn't make sense at all. It is kind of funny though, because when she plays her the new version of the song, it's practically the same song, but with a bunch of moaning in the background. So Jocelyn doesn't want to release this soulless crap. She wants to release music that comes from a genuine place. And Tedros is here to help her achieve just that, in the most disgusting way imaginable. I can't wait to tell you about it. What could have been a nice exploration and examination into the exhausting and constrictive world of the music industry turns into a weird mental game between a pop star and a random man that wishes to exploit her by making her fall in love with him. But then the show tries to bamboozle us, and it's like, oh my gosh, she was controlling him the whole time. Gotcha. In the first episode, Jocelyn wants to invite Tedros over, and her friend and assistant Leia urges her not to because he has, and I quote, a vibe. And this is how Jocelyn responds to that.
Yeah, I kind of like that about him.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, I kind of like that about him.
What the fuck? So Tedros enters her house, and hilariously, he's wearing this long black trench coat. His weird-ass rat tail is suspended in the air. Like, it just sticks straight out. This dude's rat tail looks like it could have been what killed Steve Irwin.
I am so tough. Stay away from me or I'm gonna bite you.
God damn. It's impressive how unlikable they made this guy. And his appeal is not convincing at all. You literally just met this guy and he's creeping into your house wearing a long black trench coat. So what does Tedros do with Joss during their first real night together? Well, he says this after hearing her new song. He then proceeds to put her dress over her head. He then ties it around her neck so she can't breathe. He takes a knife and he pokes a hole where her mouth is so she can breathe. And this was meant to be some sort of strange trust exercise. But I think for any normal person, they would tell him to leave immediately, right? But I guess for some odd reason, Joss is into him because of this. Like, she thinks this is sexy. These people barely know each other. They met like yesterday and they're doing this to each other? Earlier in the show, they did establish that Jocelyn has this choking, I guess. But why is Tedros so comfortable doing this to her right off the bat? It's so weird. Like a massive red flag, you know what I mean? So Jocelyn feels out of control in her life. All of these people around her are constantly telling her what to do. Understandably, it's exhausting. So what does she need? A new guy in her life that tells her what to do. They do explain later in the show that she's creatively lost and directionless ever since the passing of her abusive mother. But then they completely ruin this with a gotcha moment that I keep bringing up. It ruins literally everything.
I'm just a freak, yeah. You know I want it bad.
I've made a severe and continuous.
So she films more of the music video later, and it's a disaster. Jocelyn just can't be pleased. She doesn't like any of the takes. And when they finally get a good take, the camera malfunctions. This part of the show made me laugh out loud because holy shit, I can relate to that. I absolutely hate it when I have a technical issue when I record a video. It's the worst. Nikki is getting kind of fed up with Jocelyn, so she immediately signs one of Jocelyn's dancers, who they think is attractive enough to be a pop star and who can sing. Nikki's plan is to give the song to this girl instead. They think Jocelyn is unstable and unreliable. So Tedros and his cult visit Jocelyn's place. Tedros gets his claws deeper into Jocelyn. Meanwhile, one of his talents and cult members named Isaac, with a Z, entices and seduces Jocelyn's friend Leia. There's one of many provocative and hyper scenes between Tedros and Jocelyn. The lines during this sequence made me laugh in disgust.
You look like a treat. Imagine my tongue on your my fat tongue. I want to grab you by the while I suffocate you with my I want you to choke on it.
Oh, did I mention that one of the people in Tedros' cult is an underage girl named Chloe, who he most definitely seduced in a similar manner that he's doing to Jocelyn. So that's nice. And to add to that mess, Chloe was a drug addict when Tedros met her.
I was a heroin addict.
So Tedros, being Tedros, saw this underage drug addict, heard her sing, and thought, hell yeah, prime target for me to seduce into my weird music cult. The third episode starts with Leia driving Joss and Tedros to go shopping. Tedros eats Jocelyn in the back seat while they're driving. And this is a convertible, like what the hell? So yeah, this Jocelyn girl is kind of weird. Understood. And the fact that Tedros was banking his entire future upon the seduction of this pop star makes what he's doing so weird, right? Because his methods are disgusting. 99.9% of girls out there would find Tedros repulsive. So it just makes what the show's trying to convey to us that much more unbelievable. Tedros is one of those insecure tough guy losers, I guess. He thinks this employee at a clothing store is checking out Jocelyn, so this is what he does.
Let me catch you looking at her again. Curb stomp you. Drag you down Rodeo.
Chill out, bro. Holy sh**. And the fact that what Tedros does after this is way worse, and the entire time Jocelyn continues to like him. In fact, she likes him more as the episodes go on, until she finds out that everything was set up, and then she gets upset, I guess. So far, Jocelyn knows a couple things about Tedros. He's a horny, disgusting weirdo that doesn't know anything about boundaries, and he's super insecure. We're off to a good start. But at least he helped me remake my song that my label hated, but you know, I'm sure things will improve from here. Jocelyn jokingly calls him gay, and he responds like this.
I think you're gay.
I ain't gay.
Definitely the type of man you want to keep around. So then it would seem that Tedros takes complete control over their house. He has Jocelyn fire some people she had working for her before. He calls Leia retarded for not listening to him. They have a meeting with Jocelyn's agent, and immediately after they leave, Tedros starts her muffin on the same couch. Come on, dude, have some tact. Jesus Christ. Obviously, this show is doing a great job portraying this guy as a gutter rat, and I guess Jocelyn likes that. There is an angle to this that like, oh my god, she's surrounded by all these people who are so proper and do everything by the book, and then she's approached by this one guy who is the exact opposite of that, and it's kind of exciting, I guess. But wait a minute, didn't her team lock someone in a bathroom because she wanted to show her in a photo shoot? That's weird. Jocelyn's manager, Destiny, suggests that they should kill the guy. Hold up, guys. Let her cook. Tedros then confronts Xander, Jocelyn's creative director, about the lack of any creative direction. Tedros then asks him, what would you do if you had carte blanche?
Carte blanche, right? What would you do?
Except The Weeknd says it completely wrong. I don't know if they did that on purpose to make the character more of a dumbass, but yeah, it's carte blanche, not carte blanche. In the next scene, Isaac, with a Z, makes a point that saying no is only ever denying yourself an experience that could lead to better art. And then later in this same scene, he says no when dared to kiss Jocelyn, in fear of what Tedros might do to him. This was such a non-scene. We already know how controlling Tedros is. Xander has this idea to make the face photo Joss's new album cover, and Tedros agrees it's a great idea. Leia thinks it's disgusting and irresponsible, given how many young fans Jocelyn has. So they could just censor the image and still use it, but nobody suggests this. That same night around the dinner table, Tedros forces Jocelyn to open up about her mother's abuse. Tedros suggests that perhaps her mother's abuse forced Jocelyn to be more productive in life. Jocelyn tells them that her mother used to beat her with a hairbrush whenever she got out of line. Since then, her mother died of cancer. Tedros has the great idea to beat Jocelyn with this same hairbrush to help motivate her to get those creative juices flowing. So yeah, that's a huge yikes from me. Are they really going to glorify abuse in this show? Why, of course they are. I mean, if this isn't bad enough, in the beginning of the show, they said mental illness is sexy or something along those lines. So yeah, there's obviously something severely f***ed up about this scene glorifying the usefulness of abuse when it comes to the creation of art. This show almost suggests that the only way Jocelyn could have moved on from her mother's death and continue to create great art is by literally revisiting her mother's abuse with someone else. What makes this so much worse is this episode ends with Jocelyn saying this to Tedros.
Thank you for taking care of me.
Now, I know this show has already told us that Jocelyn is kind of a masochist, right? She's just a messed up kid, you know? She loves being out of control. Whenever I'm out of control, I'm in control, she could say, you know? She's just that kind of gal. She's busted on the inside. So somehow, beyond anyone's comprehension, the creepiest guy on earth who gaslighted Jocelyn into re-experiencing her abuse has taken over the house. We learned that, to nobody's surprise, Tedros was once arrested for kidnapping his ex-girlfriend, holding her hostage, and torturing her for 3 days. And this is only one of many charges against him. At this point in the show, Tedros is in charge of Jocelyn's schedule. He's canceling basically every important call and meeting she has, because she needs to make time for music making or something, even though these meetings are very important, and Leia makes that clear, but Tedros doesn't care. He's like, "Fuck you, Leia, we're doing what I want to do." I'm sure that will benefit Jocelyn's career, ignoring all these very important calls. Tedros introduces Jocelyn to Mike Dean, this epic broccoli head producer that has a great track record, and somehow Tedros has this connection, but Jocelyn doesn't? What kind of sense does that make? I mean, I know Tedros owns a club, so maybe he met him at a club. Why doesn't Jocelyn already have a music producer? She's signed to a huge label that can give her anything she needs to make music, right? Why wouldn't they have assigned her a great producer? That makes no sense. This random guy named Tedros had to come in and save her by giving her one. This random guy he knows, Mike Dean. Oh, that's cool. The first original song Tedros helps Jocelyn produce has these as lyrics.
I don't wanna decide things for myself.
Like, how in your face does this message have to be? There's like zero subtlety or nuance to this show. Chloe tells Jocelyn's manager Destiny a story about how Tedros saved her from her drug addiction. But of course we know the real story behind this, don't we? Yeah, sure, he saved her, but at what cost? Tedros has so many flaws that it's honestly tough to find his strengths. He's incredibly impatient with people. He's hot-headed, insecure, manipulative, scheming, vindictive, abusive. I mean, I can go on. He's got that stingray-ass rat tail thing. What else? What if I told you that Jocelyn was manipulating him all along? I bet that would blow your mind. And I'm sure that wouldn't ruin anything, right? Anyway, there's a scene where Tedros seduces Jocelyn in front of everybody to get a specific sound out of her. He blindfolds her, and he rubs her carpet real good, and she has no issues with this for some reason. So yeah, I get it. Jocelyn isn't that normal either. She's strangely okay with all this bizarre shit. The only people in this show with any sense, and the only people in the show that are likable, are Leia and Destiny. Every other character in this show is either like meh and forgettable, or completely unlikable. And the most unlikable people in the show are the two main characters. There is one interaction between Leia and Isaac that I liked. Leia says he's treating her like she's not a human being. She's trying to explain to him how Tedros is brainwashing Jocelyn. And then Isaac responds by saying this, "But she's not a human being, she's a star, and stars belong to the world." This scene does a pretty good job showing us how Tedros has successfully brainwashed the people in his cult. This show tries to convince us that Tedros was instrumental in pulling the sound out of all these people who otherwise would have been directionless and lost without him. That his abusive methods were necessary. Destiny even describes the sick methods that he uses. He chokes people, he ties them up, he humiliates them, but somehow all these people are totally cool with these methods. So Jocelyn's label signs one of Jocelyn's dancer friends, Diane. They offer her Jocelyn's song and a slew of other things. I kind of like this scene because it shows us how overwhelming it must be to be in a room surrounded by suits, telling you what they can offer you and how they can change your life. It's quite literally 20 bigwig rich people versus you. It takes a very strong person to stand up to that in any way. So yeah, Tedros goes on to treat everybody in the house like a cruel drill sergeant. Jocelyn gives Tedros a shock collar that he ends up using on Xander. At this point, you think that Tedros has Joss by the balls. She even calls him over to tell him that the shock collar feels a little extreme, when she was the one that delivered it to him. What did she think he was going to use it on? The dog in the house that doesn't exist? Wait, is there a dog in the house? Maybe there is, I don't remember. There's no better way to create camaraderie and trust than forcing them to wear a shock collar and interrogating them. Right, guys? So yeah, this is what Tedros does to Xander. It's pretty messed up. He even threatens to take a hammer to his ankles if he doesn't cooperate. Now, would you believe me if I told you that Xander becomes one of Tedros's cult in the next episode? Because that's what happens. All of the resentment and hatred he must feel towards Tedros inexplicably vanishes overnight and turns into servitude. It makes no sense. In this scene, Tedros asks Xander questions about why he didn't try and help Joss when her mother was abusing her. Kind of an ironic question coming from someone who is literally abusing someone right now. The best part is, during this scene, Tedros automatically believes everything that Jocelyn says, but doesn't believe a thing Xander says. Just because Tedros has an inkling that Xander is a liar. Xander is wearing a shock collar and he's being shocked repeatedly. So he's going to do one of two things, right? He's either going to scream the truth, scream it at the top of his lungs until someone believes him, or he's going to eventually give in because he just wants the pain to stop, and he's going to tell them that he's lying when he wasn't actually lying. Xander tells him that Jocelyn's mother had him sign a contract that he wouldn't pursue a singing career. And I guess there's a chance he was lying about that. But like, who gives a
Bruh.
Who cares? No matter what Xander says, Jocelyn always replies, he's lying. So then Tedros is like, well, she's probably telling the truth. Time to shock him. So Xander gets fed up and he starts screaming at Jocelyn, calling her names and stuff. And then Jocelyn's like, all right, zap him again and again and again. I'm sorry, but in what world would Xander become one of these cult members a day later? What? If I were Xander, I would remove this collar after this, and I would leave the house. You're surrounded by psychopaths. Like, what the So yeah, eventually Xander says that he's been lying about everything, but he's obviously just saying this so the pain will stop. This entire sequence was pointless and solved nothing. But apparently one night of abuse leads to servitude. Good to know. In reality, if this show had any sort of realism, Xander would have definitely left the house after this in disgust and resentment. But of course, for some reason, he sticks around. They make him wear the collar all day. Isaac finally arrives later that night to remove it. I guess all is forgiven because Isaac gives him a little wash with a washcloth. Okay, what? On top of that, Isaac tells him as he's freeing him that he has to do something for Tedros. And Xander does it! And it's not just anything. It's not like he has to get Tedros a bottle of water or anything. Yeah, Jocelyn has this ex-boyfriend named Rob, and Tedros has Xander completely ruin this guy's life. But we'll get there. This Xander guy doesn't act like an actual person. He just does what the showrunners want him to do. It's not like there was a full month of brainwashing and indoctrination into this cult. It was literally overnight, and Xander was just like, cool, I'll work for you. I love my abusers. Tedros advises Jocelyn to go public about her mom's abuse. And without hesitation, she reveals everything on Instagram Live. Like, what the hell? This guy asks her to do something and she's like, all right. But then later this show tries to convince us that this guy had no impact on her life and that she was manipulating him and she was in control all along. She was using him. Like, what? I guess she needed him as like the idea man. She was completely lost without this random guy from a club, when she could have just got on the phone and called her label, who would have given her anything she asked for. Like, what? And I guarantee you, anybody at the label's disposal would be 100 times more effective than this random guy who owns a club. I guess he was only effective because he was able to seduce her and like their energy created this music. It's so stupid. All this makes even less sense when you realize that Tedros was around when she wrote like 2 songs. Tedros helped her write 2 songs. An album has at least 10 songs on it, right? Well, most LPs do, right? She had to have created 8 other songs without him. And apparently it's a banger. Like, everybody loves her album. So she doesn't need Tedros, right? But at the end of the show, she calls him out on stage. And she's like, I love you. I love this person. I need him around. I'm going to use him from here on out. What? She doesn't need him anymore. So she fell in love with him then. She was in love with him, but then she kicked him to the curb when she found out that he betrayed her. Later that night, Jocelyn throws a huge rager. Leia's trying to make sure Jocelyn's house isn't destroyed, but obviously no one cares about Leia. Everybody ignores her. Even Jocelyn, who's apparently her best friend, but could have fooled me. Tedros humiliates Leia in front of everybody. For some bizarre reason, Jocelyn allows this random rat tail freak to continue to harass her best friend. And not only harass, like humiliate in front of everybody. He calls her retarded. He tells her to shut up constantly. He never lets her get a word in. He forces her to cancel everything that Jocelyn has planned. But Jocelyn allows all this to happen because of the very tiny benefit of him like unlocking her sexual energy and allowing her to create 2 songs, which are mid, by the way. Like, she allows this freak into her house who's firing her staff and treating her friends like shit. He barely helps her create music, but she thinks it's all worth it in the end? Diane makes a surprise appearance at the party. Chloe tells Jocelyn that Tedros told Diane to bring her to the club in the first place. We then learn that Diane has had a thing for Tedros too. For some reason. Why does everybody like this guy? It makes no sense. Diane tells Jocelyn about World Class Sinner, which is the name of the song that the label made for her that Diane is going to steal, I guess. And Jocelyn fakes being happy for her. Jocelyn's ex, Rob, shows up at the house. Apparently, Jocelyn invited him as revenge for the Diane Tedros situation. This is where Jocelyn draws the line. Abuse? That's cool. Using shot callers on my team? Love it. Firing members of my team? Even better. Being a prick to my best friend constantly? I like it. Meeting me was a setup and you knew one of my dancers all along? Oh my god. How could you? Ugh! Tedros attempts to outdrink Rob, but he ends up embarrassing himself and quickly becomes homophobic. Let's add that one on to the huge list of things that we hate about Tedros. When Jocelyn sees Rob, she jumps into his arms. Tedros is immediately jealous now that she's stretching that tiny little put for someone else.
Stretch that tiny little...
Rob is confused about what Jocelyn wants from him because she's the one that once said to him that it's boring to be monogamous. She wants to take it back, apparently. He brings up her mom, and Jocelyn stresses that she's in a really good place right now. They bang in her room as Tedros cries outside like a little baby. The next morning, Rob gets up to leave the house. Xander and Sophie greet him on the way out, and they ask for a photo. What they're actually doing is staging a scandalous photo in order to ruin Rob's life. They're doing this at the behest of Tedros. Because remember, Xander is Tedros's now. It makes so much sense that that would happen realistically. This is realistic. This is what would really happen in the real world. For real. So it's clear as day what they're actually doing, right? Like, this girl sits on this dude's lap. What Rob should have done immediately after this is post online somewhere about this strange interaction. Be like, wow, this weird girl just like harassed me randomly. She like sat on my lap and asked for a picture out of nowhere. It was very inappropriate. You know, beat them to the punch because it's obvious what they're gonna do. Instead, he just goes,
delete that photo,
as he leaves. Oh, sure, dude. Yeah, they're gonna listen to you. What? In the final episode. Thank God we're done. Joss and Tedros have a falling out. She puts her big girl pants on, but apparently they were always on. Could have fooled me. She attempts to kick out Tedros, but she wants to keep his talent, so she allows them to stay. Joss's entire team shows up at the house, and Joss has all of the artists perform for them. Rob calls Leia and tells her that he's being accused of rape by the woman who asked for a photo the night before. So Xander is totally cool ruining some random guy's life for Tedros, because why? Because of that one night of torture? Wow, that really helped develop some undying loyalty between them, I guess. Cool. There's a veiled threat by one of Jocelyn's managers to Tedros, in the form of a Little Red Riding Hood story. He compares Tedros to the wolf in the story, and he's the hunter. And then he tries to pay off Tedros, but Tedros refuses. So Jocelyn's manager ends up meeting with this girl who works for Vanity Fair, and he reveals the Tedros story to her. They publish it in an article, and it completely ruins Tedros' life. Oh yeah, the guy's name isn't actually Tedros, it's this.
Mauricio Jackson.
So these powerful people are all very impressed by this group of singers. They love Jocelyn's new song. Her tour is a go. Later, Tedros ends up at a venue that Jocelyn is playing at. He uses his real name to enter because I guess she put his real name on the guest list. She misses this psychopath. She wants him around. Let's forget this monstrous list of all of his flaws. He's definitely not a toxic person to keep around. I know this show is telling us that Jocelyn is also toxic, so they're like a toxic couple. So they meet each other again after some time has passed. And it's revealed to us that the whole mother abuse story with the hairbrush was fabricated by Jocelyn. She's just a masochistic weirdo that wanted Tedros to beat her with a brush. I mean, if you look at the scene when she's getting beat by the brush, she doesn't appear to be having a great time. In fact, she looks like she's suffering a great deal. I guess she wasn't? I guess it was reverse psychology to use this strange torture technique to make it so she had more control over Tedros? Like, what? So this girl was the villain all along. Cool. So I guess all the times the show is trying to make us feel bad for her. Like during the music video part, where she was clearly struggling, when she's super happy about the revamped version of her song, but she gets turned down by Nikki. So yeah, all that is meaningless now, because we all don't like Jocelyn. Wouldn't this show have been so much more effective if they didn't go for this gotcha thing, and she finally found some control? You know, she gets this creep out of her life, and she's creating good music now, her life is great now, you know, like that would be a very good ending. But of course, course, this show has to try and, you know, bamboozle the audience. She was pulling the strings the whole time, dude. Couldn't you tell? I mean, look at how awful she looks. At the end of this show, Jocelyn introduces the crowd to the love of her life, Tedros, the man who pulled her from the darkest hours of her life. I think she misspoke. I think what she meant to say was introduced her to the darkest hours of her life. You're talking about the same guy that abused you and harassed all your friends, right? Wow. The same man who had a literal cult of talent that he manipulated the same way? Jocelyn knows that there was a massive hit piece out on this guy, right? Kind of hilarious to announce your love for this same guy in front of thousands of people and cameras. That's one way to obliterate your career. There is the angle that she did this to prove to her team that no matter what they did, she was always in control, right? Because her team was the one who put the hit piece out on Tedros. She's taking her power back that she never lost, I guess, because she was in control of Tedros the entire time. I guess she was trying to take her power back from the bigwigs, you know? She always had power over Tedros when he was actively trying to take over the house and doing a ton of sketchy shit along the way. She was never worried about him for some reason. Like, what? I guess the idea is that she's going to use him from now on to help her create music or something, even though we already established that she doesn't actually need him. She even said that when she tried to kick him out of the house earlier. She said, "You've served your purpose. I don't need you anymore." So was that a lie too? Kind of a strange strategy to write your show around two despicable people that end up together at the end. There's nobody for the audience to root for aside from maybe Leia, but she pieces out when she finally realizes how awful everybody is. There's something really gross about a show like this that tells its audience that there are benefits to weaponizing your abuse for the sake of creating art. Not only that, the show never tells us what actually happened between Joss and her mother. All we know for sure is that her mother was controlling. So Joss needed someone in her life that controlled her in the same way. But she also needed to take back her control from the higher-ups in her life that were orchestrating every aspect of her life. She wanted to take her power back in one way, but she wanted someone in her life that controlled her in this weird masochistic way in a different way. Like, it's such a bizarre and stupid way to write a show. It's not only confusing, it doesn't make any sense. She wants Tedros in her life, right? Because she wants that person like her mother to keep her in check, I guess, or, I don't know, have this weird sense of control over her. But by the end of the show, she's the one in control of Tedros. Like, she's got him on a leash, so he won't be effective at all anymore. I guess she loves him somehow. Why would she love this guy? Because they had chemistry? Is that why? She has chemistry with Rob, and Rob was a way better guy. And Tedros is the reason that Rob's life is ruined now. And she knows this. She confronts Tedros about this in the last episode, but she still likes him enough to add him to the guest list and announce her love for him in front of a crowd? What? The show tries to convince us that Tedros is this creative powerhouse with a ton of appeal and charisma, and he has this innate ability to cultivate talent and to create stars. Except none of that is convincing at all. All of the people he found to join his cult aren't famous in the slightest, and he literally uses them to try and leverage Jocelyn's fame in order to make his cult members famous. How is this not a massive red flag for his followers? He has literally nothing to show for any of his work. Nothing to prove to these people that he can make them a star. But somehow they all believe in him and put all their time in his hands. It makes no sense. This dude can somehow spot talent, but he has no idea how to achieve or maintain fame. But throughout this show, he tries to manage Jocelyn's career in order to do just that. So he's either delusional or a moron. This show is supposed to be about Jocelyn reclaiming her agency from the powerful people around her, who are controlling every aspect of her life. But then this show tries to convince us that she was always in control, and she had the power to control everybody in her life the whole time. She was just playing games or something. So yeah, I hate this show. 1 out of 10, horrible piece of shit. Don't watch it. Like, the cinematography was okay, I guess. Like, it was filmed fine. Like, the sound was good. Even the pop songs they created for this pop star are mid at best. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about The Idol. Thank you so much to everybody that's scrolling up the screen right now. You guys make videos like this possible. I love you. You can join them by going to patreon.com/ElvisTheAlien. You can also support this channel by checking out my clothing brand called Alien. AYYLIEN. Go to alienclothing.com and see what we have over there. We have a bunch of really cool shirts, just like this one. Oh my god, look, he's eating the galaxy like it's ramen or something. Really sick. That's gonna do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.